This is the Seahawkers podcast, live and uncatfished. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and we are joining you live following the Seahawks loss to the Dallas Cowboys 41-35. Adam, did you get any yellow laundry delivered to the Gulch while just during this game? Because I feel like there was a lot of it. It overflowed.
I sent it all to Dallas, but I was going to start this off with a joke, Brandon. A joke. And I'm going to explain that because of our experience last week. Not because I think Cowboys fans can't get this like 49ers fans can't. But just want to start out by saying that was a fun game of ref ball featuring the Seahawks and the Cowboys. That was not the reason we lost. Not the reason we lost. Let me quote that again in case anybody thinks that that's what I'm trying to say.
You should have led with that, because otherwise it'll be confused and contorted. And really, you know, as much as it felt like it was a game of ref ball in the third quarter, the fourth quarter was better because I don't think it could get any worse than the third quarter. So I at least felt, and it kind of evened out anyway. It was about 130 yards of each direction of officiating. So we can get into some of the actual reasons, but we can start off with Samuel Gelber, who came in with a $12 super chat saying, having a truly catfishy day. Shane McGowan dies, lead singer of one of your favorite bands, I think, Samuel. My dog is sick, and the Hawks get double teamed by the Stars being the Cowboys and the Stripes being the refs.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sam. You don't deserve bad days. You deserve good days because you're a good dude. I hope your dog gets better, man. Nothing worse than when your pet feels bad. A close second is when another football game transgresses and half the team doesn't show up to play. And that's part of what happened here again. Another non-complete game by the Seahawks and another L. It may be more exciting to some people's eyes because it was more of an offensive game, but still half the team didn't show up. Another non-complete game.
Yeah, that one half being the defense when they allow the opposition to put 41 points on the field. And yeah, some of it is calls at bad times, but we've seen that before. But when you allow an opponent to score 41 points, it's hard to say that all 41 of those points were on officiating, especially when there are third down plays that you could have made. I think there was at least one in 3rd and 16 play where they just throw a dump off and the dude like rumbles up the middle of the field for an easy first down. And, some missed tackling all throughout the game. So I guess if I had to pin it on one side of the ball, it would be the defense.
Tackling was better. I mean, in the defense's defense, the Dallas Cowboys are the highest scoring team in the league, of course, but you should be able to get at least 3 stops in a game. And honestly, that 3rd and 16 play might be the one that I'm the most angry about when it comes to the defense in a lot of ways. I don't know how many times we have to see that over the course of Seahawks football, of everybody bailing out and not just playing at the sticks, but playing past the sticks. And they don't leave one dude in for the inevitable thing that teams do, which is run everybody deep and then leak somebody out underneath. And they never have somebody there that's ready to take that on in a reasonable manner. By the time somebody gets there, it's always right at the sticks. You're like, oh my gosh, are they actually going to be able to get it? Nope. Not happening.
Yeah, unfortunately, the 3 stops in this game were, I think, a field goal early on that we thought might be a touchdown, the turnover by Geno Smith, which turned into a turnover on downs, which was nice. And then at the end of the game, when they held him to a field goal and giving the offense the opportunity to drive the field at the end of the game. So that was the 3, if you want to count them as stops. But that would be about it. Carly Perkins with a $5 super chat. And I think I disappeared one of the comments you wanted to get to, Adam. We'll get back to it. $5 saying, I'm not even disappointed in the loss. Just so happy to see some life in our offense. Running the ball works. And we gave Dallas a run for their money.
Yeah. I was already set to hop on here if we won and do a little victory lap because, Brandon, what did we call for on the last show? What did we call for?
Yeah, more runs on 1st and 2nd down.
And we got a boatload of them. I think we had more first down runs this game than maybe we've had all season. It was so refreshing. And voila, it fixes everything that's wrong with that offense. It's magic. We tried to tell you. We did. And here it is. So, Yeah, the comment that I wanted to get to is a fellow named Eric. He said, well, I hope you're not blaming this on the loss. That's not the reason why you guys lost. I'm going to pretend he just joined late and doesn't have broken ears.
Yeah, that we'll pretend that. So we've got our Ryan 911, our live executive producer, although Sam's given Ryan a run for his money, has taken over that title. But coming in saying closest game, enjoyed watching the offense, on to the next. And I do see a lot of people who are, I guess, conflicted in some way, and that it's a loss because it's disappointing, and it's the third straight loss, which I guess now we've matched the 49ers at doing that this season. It is a bummer, and especially where they are in the playoff standings. But then there's also gosh, we had to hear all week leading up to this game about how this team was going to get blown out because Dallas blows out bad teams, and so. Is some of the good news that we're not a bad team, we're just a mediocre team, and it was kind of close. So it kind of feels like a win, even though it's not. But that's where the conflicting aspect of it comes from, I think.
I mean, it's an average football team, no doubt. And our number one issue had been the offense over the last few weeks in this losing stretch. And the Seahawks offense actually turned it around, and they started doing some of the things that you need to do to play winning football. And so I can get excited about that. I can, but then I do realize that we're going to have to win 4 of our next 6. And the next 2 are tough opponents. I do get a little bit of hope just from the fact that the offense did seem to figure it out a little bit as to how to run an efficient offense, and that's running the ball early and often, and it really set everything up. The play action, the deep stuff to JSN and DK. That first touchdown to DK, Brandon, set up by the run. And so having all that transpire, it gives me a little bit more hope going into Santa Clara next week that at the very least maybe they could get into a shootout with these guys and actually make it competitive this time, whereas last time, even with the offense laying a giant, egg throughout the day, they were within 11 late in the third. Like that's, if they do half of what they did against Dallas, that could be a dub.
Yep. And DK Metcalf had a heck of a game. We'll get to that. RI 911. Sam will never take my title. Just kidding. It's good that people are supporting the show. Thanks, Ryan. You are always helping to support the show. And yes, DK Metcalf on the day, as we look at some of the stats, 6 catches of 8 targets, 134 yards, 3 touchdowns. So if that Dallas corner was ahead of DK, I don't know if he is after today. 3 touchdowns, and part of that, it almost feels like 5 because I don't know how many he had that penalties took off the board that they ended up scoring again. Maybe it wasn't DK. It was Jackson that had one that came back, and I think Fant that had one that came back. But
that was just BS. They didn't give Pete the timeout when he wanted a timeout when the clock was running down, but they sure gave it to McCarthy.
Yeah.
But they scored anyway, so it didn't make any difference.
No. And it was a weird game overall. Officiating wise, offense wise, they got they moved the ball well at times, and then there's other times to where it just well, I think part of it too with the offense and some of their struggles, the offensive line was getting beat at some inopportune times, and especially on that final drive of the game too. You could see that when you just have Parsons coming off the edge on 4th down unblocked, and it ends the game that way.
Yeah, that's inexcusable. Play of the season, maybe, and you don't block up their best pass rusher. Like, I don't know if that's Gino with the protection call. I don't know if that's Waldron with how he wants that blocked. I don't know if that was, miscommunication between Dallas and Lucas there or whatever it was, but that's absolutely inexcusable. And you deserve to lose the game if you can't get a hand on Micah Parsons on 4th and 2. I would have loved to see something different. I don't know if that was a screen or not. Maybe that was just an emergency dump off to Dallas because Mike was there in a hurry. But I sure would have loved to see, something involving the tight ends in that situation. I think that would have been great. Or even get JSN involved on that play as well. Another monster game from JSN. That was awesome to see.
Yeah, 11 targets, so the most targets on the day for him. 7 receptions overall. He did have some times where, man, it hit him in the hands and he couldn't hang on to it. So as hard as people are on DK about drops, I think JSN had just as many in this game, 62 yards overall. It would have been a whole lot more had they actually counted the touchdown catch that he had in the end zone. But yeah, big day. Then this would have been kind of that biggest breakout day for JSN. So now maybe we can call it. We can call it that he had his breakout game.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. Tyler had a rough game in stretches, had the big
he
drop,
had a drop too.
And then on the interception, that was a god-awful route. That was so bad. When he's getting towards the top of his stem, he's still 3 steps away from the top of his stand. He's already starting to bend it towards the sideline. And then when he gets to the top of his route, he just rounds that thing off all lackadaisical like and left Gino hanging out to dry. That was Tyler's amazing. He had a couple great routes later on, but that one was that was an F.
Part of it was the route. Part of it was the play by the defender too, because Bland was crashing down on Tyler to kind of meet him at that point. And so I think Tyler, knowing that he had to break off his route, but Bland crashing down, it kind of made it so he ended up rounding it off the way he did, because I don't think he could take it quite as sharp the way that Bland ended up playing that route. So a little bit of both. Michael Paul coming in with a 12-19 super chat. Tough but exciting game mostly. I just want to hear Adam say my Discord name. I like to touch my Bobo.
I was gonna say, I mean, I don't mind touching my Bobo. Like, I mean, it's a thing. It's fine. Yeah, we can leave that there. But,
one catch for 9 yards for Bobo if we're counting Bobo touches in this game.
There we go. And, I had kind of wished that the defense would have been able to touch Dak Prescott a bit more, although they did get 3 sacks or was it 4 throughout the game, which is quite a bit considering as well as the Dallas offensive line has been playing the last few weeks.
Yeah, just again, when it came time to really pin them down and try and get off the field, those were the drives where they had a lot of trouble getting to Dak. And, red zone efficiency, the Seahawks 4 of 5, so they were good on that end. 4 of 8 for Dallas, so they beat them in red zone efficiency. That was nice. I was trying to look up the number of sacks, and it's just not coming to me right now.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, it was like 3 or 4. It was somewhere in there. It was a decent showing by the pass rush, and they were all around Dak for a good amount of the time. And then Darrell Taylor had a chance to really make an impact late in the game and couldn't get Dak to the ground, and he ends up flicking it out of there. And Dak got a couple of nice kind of into the grass plays where he was able to just do a little underhand flip and turn a negative into a positive. So give him some credit there. But
where was the whistle? Where was the whistle on that when he had him in the grass for what felt like as long as he did?
Oh, I don't know. Those are the ones that I don't get too upset about. Like, sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. What I do get upset about when it comes to officiating stuff is when you go through a game and the refs throw 3 flags against the Cowboys and then pick them up. I can't remember the last time that the Seahawks have ever had a flag thrown against them and then picked up. I can't recall. I really can't.
Yeah, the face mask getting picked up was weird. Especially when you would think that that's one of those calls that ends up getting reviewed by the booth and the amount of time that it had, and that seemed like a pretty clean shot of that one. And then there was a pass interference call that I remember getting picked up.
A couple on Woolen that were pretty some weird ones. That one on Bobby where it was bang bang. That was really good coverage. Yeah, I mean, again, not the reason that you lost because
and there was probably ones that they could have called on the Seahawks that didn't get called, and that's why I think it was just poorly officiated, probably evened out, but it put a stain, especially on that third quarter, which was that Seahawks drive that was or the Cowboys drive where the Seahawks were on defense for what felt like 10 minutes. And it was a flag fest that whole drive. It was so annoying.
It's tough. And now you do have to understand that these are the 2 most penalized teams in the league, right? So you're going to get quite a few flags in a game between those two teams there. I'll just see in Mitch's comment here. Which one?
Which one of which?
If the DPIs was on Woolen. Like that was actually legit.
No, I think he's joking that the
okay.
pass interference one where he had his hand on his shoulder that everybody was questioning. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
That's the little melting smiley face that I believe intends sarcasm.
Oh, see, I didn't get that. I just got a square. So I didn't know what that was. Apparently my computer does not recognize your sarcasm emoji, Mitch. I'm very sorry. It was an uneven game officiated by the refs. And it did feel like a little like, these are the two most penalized teams in the league. I'm going to get me some FaceTime tonight. I'm going to make sure mom tunes into this game.
Right. Yeah, the two most penalized teams with maybe the ref crew that calls the most penalties. That's what it felt like we got. Airy 484 coming in. Fire Pete. There's too much talent on our team to be this bad. It's bad coaching. It feels like the Jeff Fisher Rams all over again. That's probably not going to be a Fire Pete type show for you, Mr. 44.
Well,
so
I have a suggestion. Brandon. As a user, has he ever heard of Mel's Hole? Have you ever heard of Mel's Hole?
I have. Yeah, it's in Washington.
Yes.
It's that hole that you can just throw everything in and it never surfaces anywhere.
That's exactly right. The military took it over and all that stuff, right? It's over by Wenatchee somewhere. Now, with that said, for all the people that they're screaming Fire Pete into their screen, you might as well just go and scream it into Mel's Hole. He is never going to be fired. It's not happening. Like you're just wasting your time and your breath. And he's not doing a fireable job at this point with this team. There's a lot of execution problems with this football team. Up to this point, if you would have told me fire Waldron, sure, right, I'd have been on board. But I actually saw some learning from Waldron in this game, some changes in philosophy.
Yeah,
and I think that maybe came from Pete.
It probably did. They're doing fine this season. It's not great. It's a young team, and it feels like they should be better. But I think there is a lot more learning that this team needs to get in the position that they need to be able to compete. Whether or not Pete's going to be around once that time hits, I don't know. But I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that was Amy Holmes's suggestion in the Discord about Pete putting his foot down on the offensive play calling. Dixon was bored.
He didn't have anything to do except watch the big screen TV in the middle of the field.
Yeah, he wanted to try to hit that thing at least once, I'm sure. But it's so unbelievable to see the defense tighten up for a good 2 quarters in the 49ers game, which I think is a superior offense. And they couldn't quite get there today. And we've been railing on tackling, but I actually thought the tackling was improved today.
It was improved. There were some key moments. Well, the tackling was improved just on Reek Woolen's part, because I felt like there were several times where the ball came Reek's direction and he either played the play well, made the tackle well. I think maybe I could count one, but that would be about it. I counted probably more on Quandre in this game, just thinking off the top of my head while watching the game. But there were times where it felt like they needed to get that play to get off the field, and the defense couldn't do it.
They couldn't do it. And part of that reason is that Witherspoon had a bit of a rough game. That was a welcome to the league moment, I believe, for Witherspoon, just because CeeDee Lamb put him on skates so many different times throughout the game. And that'll be something that he will learn from. He will get better, and he'll shut down CD at some point here in the next couple of years. It will happen. He will get his revenge game, but today wasn't it. And then, Tariq, I think, did a better job as a whole against CD, but again, he wasn't allowed to play for a lot of the game too. So
it did feel like they made a little bit of an adjustment after Witherspoon got burned by CD on what felt like successive drives in the first half, because that was a matchup that I wanted to see. And then after those first couple drives by the Cowboys offense, I was ready. Yeah, don't put Witherspoon somewhere else. That wasn't working.
Jamal Adams had some misses. He had some good tackles as well. Amy here, Reek led the team in tackles. And I think that's something that stood out, is that he definitely tackled so much better today than he has the entire season, despite this quote unquote shoulder injury that kept him out the last game.
Yeah. 8 solo tackles by Reek Woolen in this game, 7 by Bobby, 7 by Jamal, and those were your tackle leaders.
Sure. And when you can't get him off the field, you probably end up with quite a few tackles as well. So that was a big problem. Time of possession was skewed horribly against the Seahawks throughout this game. One thing that was almost a blessing and a curse was the offense was so good that it was scoring so much more quickly than the Cowboys on drives on average, that the time of possession managed to get totally out of whack because defense was completely optional in the first half and nobody decided to actually give it a try. The only non-scoring drive was Jason Myers' missed field goal, which honestly looms large when you think about it late in the game.
Right, because then you maybe play it a little bit differently. The two plays that really I think hit me the most in this game were the Jason Myers miss, which that was another weirdly officiated play because he comes out on the field. I think were late spotting the football. He motioned to the officials to reset the clock. They ignored him. And then Pete wanted to take a timeout. They ignored that. And they got the delay game, and then they got the miss. So that whole situation was weird. And Camden saying missed field goal may have been caused by the refs. It played a role. Obviously, Myers was the one kicking it, and he's had his struggles this year too. But yeah, had that gone a little bit differently, I would have hoped to think that that played out a little bit differently. So there was that one, and then the other play that really irks me is the throw over the middle to Lockett, where it was a little bit behind him, but you see Tyler come up with those plays so much more often than you don't when he's wide open in the middle of the field. And if they get that, then they get into field goal range. Then they're not worrying about, I think that was another turnover on down situation where they got across midfield after that, but then they ended up having to go for it. And that didn't work out.
Oh, no, it didn't. That ball hit him right in the face mask. I mean, that was right in his mug. That wasn't a little behind him. That was a dot by Gino. Let's not get that twisted. Tyler did Gino a little dirty in the game there, but he still made his plays when the time came as well. The clock reset, that probably should have happened. I think Myers misses that from 5 yards closer too, with the way that he kicked it. Right. I don't know that the 5 yards was the difference maker there, but maybe it got him out of rhythm. I don't know.
Or I maybe it, just weirded him out that he asked for it to be reset and they didn't do it. So that was, again, where got into his head a little bit too. Who knows? Kickers are weird.
Kickers are weird. No doubt about it. That was disappointing for sure. I still think that 3rd and 16 eats me a little bit more than the missed field goals in a lot of ways. But one thing that you can hang your hat on is Zach Charbonnet is definitely a hit from this draft. No doubt about it. I know a lot of people lamented taking another running back in the 2nd round, and now he's hurt too with an ankle injury, but he looked damn good today.
He did. Yeah, he got 19 carries for 60 yards. So nothing huge, but again, I'll make this point again. I don't know if I made it to you directly or just to Clinton, but Charbonnet, he does feel kind of in a similar vein of Chris Carson, to where, he's going to get those tough yards. He's going to run hard, but he's not going to get those breakout runs like you ever see from Walker. And, the Cowboys, against a team like this, I was really hoping that they would use him more. I was hoping we'd see a little bit of McIntosh too, which Mitch in the chat says, can we finally see McIntosh? And toward the end, I know when Charbonnet got hurt, and it felt like, well, maybe we could see a little bit of a change, but they don't seem ready to run Kenny out there quite yet.
Okay, so I saw this a lot in the Discord. Where's K-Mac? Where's K-Mac? Where's Kenny Mac? And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, he has been on the active roster, or backup on the active roster for what, 2 weeks now? Yeah. And lo and behold, he hasn't managed to unseat DJ Dallas from RB3 yet.
Right.
Like, it just hasn't happened. That's the reason you didn't see Kenny Mac yet. He is a 7th round rookie who missed the majority of the season with an injury. It is just starting to get his poop in a group. He wasn't ready. Clearly he wasn't ready.
No. And so I'm not ready to, call anybody out and say that we have to see Kenny McIntosh. I don't know if it even makes quite a bit of a difference, but we got Washington Fish Quest coming in with a $5 super chat. Legend has it Jamal Adams is still standing in the end zone, waiting for Jake Ferguson to back into him with a touchdown.
Look, I mean, you got to give Jamal a little credit on that play when Ferguson breaks out and then continues up. Jamal was out of the play and he recovered and he was right there in the play, but Ferguson did body him up, which is what a big tight end is supposed to do. And look, Jamal, that's about as good as coverage as I expect out of Jamal. That's not his role. And, that's fine. I mean, it is awfully frustrating to see him give up a touchdown there for sure. And occasionally they're going to scheme the matchups that they want, but ideally you don't want Jamal and Adams in coverage like that. That's for sure.
Maybe we do need to blame the refs more if a Niners fan is coming into our show, Adam, and commenting high altitude MMA. It's weird for me to show love to a Seahawks podcast, but the refs hoed you guys. That would have been a blowout without Dallas getting all those bailouts. And I was kind of curious where Niners fans would kind of ally themselves, because being such big Cowboys haters, but yet also the Seahawks being division rivals, and maybe with them being a couple games up in the standings afforded them the opportunity to maybe root for Seattle a little more than Dallas.
Yeah, well, high altitude MMA, like that's a dude who can fight at 10,000 feet. He must be a badass, so good for him. But yeah, thanks for saying that, man. It is appreciated. Well, we try very, very hard never to really blame refs on this show. There are moments where you go, okay, it does need to be talked about, some of the calls and those sort of things, and which is the way that we approach things after the Niners game too, by the way. That's what we did.
Let's see. Austin Torres saying Jamal had a great game. He had an okay game. Like, he had some plays where
B-. Yeah.
Mitch saying, according to Sherm, cornerback, the hardest position to play. Pass coverage is hard to perfect. Yeah, and I thought they handled it relatively well. I just thought that the refs, how they officiated the fourth quarter, was more like how I would have liked to see it most through the game. Because were there things?
No, I'm with you. It's so bad, just shaking my head because it was so bad. The inconsistency. Because it's one thing if you're going to call the game close from the jump, right? Okay, fine. The players will eventually adapt. They'll figure it out. They'll kind of understand where this is going. But then for it to just drastically change in the fourth, what is this, the NBA?
Right. Yeah. We only ref during certain times of the game and then stop. Yeah. Well, speaking of NBA, how many times in this game did we see flops? I felt like we saw a flop from one of the Cowboys because it was, wasn't it
Cam
Leo
Young?
who was, or it was Cam Young, and the Cowboys dude was kind of up on him, and he kind of did, he didn't even fully extend his arms, but he kind of gave him a little bit of a bump, and the dude fell down on the ground. And I don't want to see this becoming the NBA, because we've even seen in some games to where with the corners, when they get a little bit close to hands to the face, you'll see a dude just kind of snap his neck like he got hands to the face. And so and we were starting to see the NBA flopping enter in the NFL a little bit too.
Yeah, look, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. I'm in on that. That's fine. There's a couple of tradecraft things we can take from the Cowboys. If you're on offense and you play wide receiver, after every single call down the sideline to your receiver should hop up and then point to the ref, and then you'll get a flag. It's really cool. That's definitely something that we need to take from them.
Yeah, stems of 94. Cam Young is just strong as hell. That's it. Maybe we should be giving the refs credit in that he should not be brushing the backs of his wrist up against the defender, because that'll make dudes fall down.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing that was rough in this game was the rotation of Abe Lucas and Jason Peters. When Jason Peters was out there, he was over his skis at this point in his NFL career. There would have been a day probably 10 years ago where he'd lock up Micah Parsons, and that was that. But that day has come and passed. And they've struggled at times too. But again, his first game back in 6 weeks?
It was
7 weeks. Yeah.
And I don't know how many sacks did Geno take on the day. Maybe one, if any.
I think one. Might have been 0. Late in the game, it was still at 0. No doubt about it.
Yeah, and he had a couple plays where he just got the ball off in time to where it would have been a sack, but he got bailed out by throwing it away. So, yeah, Hey, CBS.com, why do you not have sack stats up on your page yet? Like the game is over. Let's figure it out.
Let's figure it out. One thing that the defense did throughout the game that I don't know if it actually figured out the Cowboys or not, it looked like it didn't, was they blitzed a lot in this game, which is something I've been calling for. Do you think the reason that they got ate up a lot in this game was because of the blitzing?
The Seahawks offense?
No, the Seahawks defense blitzed the Cowboys quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, there were one touchdown you could definitely attribute to the blitz coming in, because I think what did they send? Brooks on one of those blitz, and they just went right after Bobby. And, it was an easy touchdown. Part of it, I suppose, Bobby in coverage, not getting too close to his dude there as he was coming across right in front of him. But, yeah, a little bit. I think Dak is just good this year. Like, we kind of knew that coming into this game, that he's been playing really well this season. And so with CD, with kind of that receiving crew, they did handle the pass rush well. If you're looking at it from a Cowboys perspective, like, they gave Dak a lot of time, a lot more than I would have liked. So
at times,
I think, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they would have blitzed less, would the Cowboys have scored less? Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of those things I'm interested to look at when we go back on the all 22, but well, they do blitz Bobby quite a bit, and you got to mix it up a bit with Brooks as well. I do understand that, but the one thing that you talked about, the play, I think it was a third down, and they blitzed Brooks, and then they brought a crosser right in front of Bobby's face, and that was another very frustrating play with this defensively. And we've talked about this quite a bit on the pod. When you're playing the underneath zone, like, you got to convert that to man coverage at some point and actually pick up the guy and go. They gave up an over route like that earlier in the game as well, where I kind of split the nickel corner and the linebacker, and they both just stopped in their zone and then pointed behind them where there was nobody.
Right. And Barry in the chat pointing out, well, if Bobby had covered that TD, then they would have called PI, right? Yeah, that was at that point of the game to where that may have just happened, Barry. Samuel saying the 4-man rush wasn't doing it, especially how often Darrell Taylor was just taken out of the play. And that's a little bit of what you're going to get with Darrell Taylor. Like, his speed is going to take him out of the play, and then sometimes it's going to put him in the play. That's unfortunately, we kind of know what kind of player Darrell is at this point. And gosh, if he would have just brought Dak down at that one point in the game, like, you got to bring him down when you have him in the grasp for that long, and how there wasn't another dude there to help clean that up either.
That's true. Dak is a big, strong guy for sure, but yes, Taylor's forte isn't tackling per se. And you saw him actually make a couple nice plays in the run game, and then you did see him just get washed out a few plays, and just like the comment, just up and down play, which puts him in the average tier, but at the lower end of the average tier, in my opinion.
Yeah, a dude that you say, well, he was a successful draft pick because we kept him for 4 years, and then he goes and gets paid somewhere else and doesn't do much. It's kind of where Darrell Taylor's at in his career.
Yep. Exactly.
All right. Any other comments before we want to get on out of here? Amy's saying maybe Darrell Taylor needs to work on his grip strength. There you go.
Yeah, he needs to get the little springy, grippy things. Yeah. About the only thing I could think of, Brandon, is a little extra long week to get ready for the Niners in Santa Clara. And that's exciting. So we'll see if that translates to a better defensive performance. Let's see if they can keep up the offense performance. Let's see if Waldron takes that knowledge that he gained in this game, the proof that is in the pudding, and continues to run the football early and often.
So an extra long week to get ready for the Niners. And then with the Eagles Seahawks game getting shifted to Monday night, we get another extra day to prepare for the Eagles the following week. And so despite it being some really difficult opponents, probably the two best teams, well, and so a stretch of the three best teams in the NFC for 4 straight weeks, we're going to need those extra games for our Seahawks to get prepared.
Yeah, for sure. 4 of the next 6, you're going to have to get to have a pretty good shot at the playoffs. And of these next 2, do you have a gut feeling of which one you think the Hawks will show up for more?
Oh, which one they'll show up more for? I feel like it should be the Niners in particular, because with it being another divisional game, with it being just coming right off of the loss to the Niners, to where they didn't perform really, I think, as well as they needed to on offense. And now I think coming off of this offensive performance, I hope that they can, we can get back-to-back games where the offense can put some points up on the board. And like I said, build off of this performance against the Cowboys. And then the defense can go back to kind of playing hopefully as well as they did against the Niners team. And so it ends up working out a little bit more closely.
To Ryan's point here, yes, we are showing up for both, just more for one, and I'm calling my shot now. We are going to show up for the Niners game, and we're going to get our one complete football game of the year to give us all hope going down the stretch. It's going to happen. They're getting the dub in Santa Clara. I'm just putting it out there into the universe for the Hakra. And you put out good vibes, sometimes you get good vibes back. So that's basically what I'm doing there.
I love it. A win against the Niners. It's coming up. Adam's calling for it. And then, just like Ryan's saying, we're bringing it for both weeks. So here it comes. This is the turning point of the season. 3 straight losses, and propels us into this next stretch of the season where we can have some good weeks of Seahawks football.
You betcha. After this next Sunday, we are going to be looking at the NFL Films rendition at the end of the year. And this is going to be the very dramatic moment in the NFL Films version of the Seahawks season about how they turned it around.
And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.